Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Matt. And encourage me because I'm today, in fact, in front of my full board of investors. But first and foremost, Matt, I think I would suggest that we could perhaps change the name of the meetup. Because data-driven, meaning like we all have data it's here, it's no longer a problem. And I think the real challenge today is about like, and the change in data, like the people will make it happen. That's meaning the people that brave the rain, are ready to learn new things, new framework, new languages, go to meetups late at night with pizza as sole sustenance. Meaning the revolution of data will come from you, in fact. So people-driven could be the name of the meetup. What do you? It's catchy. It's catchy, yeah. I'm not sure that, no, yeah. SEO, so yeah, you need to keep the name, especially now it's international, so I think you need. But yeah, really people, because, why people? Because when you think about it, every data science story I heard in the last few years actually started with someone. Let's name the guy Gary. And so the guy would be someone that is into technology, but also understands the business within an organization. Is the guy that would start the first data science initiative on his laptop or whatever. He would hack things around in order to get things done. And so Gary would start this. Soon he will get a Padawan to work with him on a project. And suddenly he becomes the boss of a small data science initiative within the company. And I guess we have many Garys within the room. Do we have many Garys within the room? Yeah, probably. And so he starts like that, and after a while, like a few months, he delivers a first successful project, hopefully. I think. Otherwise, no budget. I guess he go works at Facebook or Google, but whatever. So he delivers a successful project, he gets more funding and so on, the team is growing, so he needs to deliver a new project, so in order to do all the sourcing and data preparation of the data, he starts to figure out to recruit people inside the company, get business analysts to work on the data and so on. And like maybe after a few months, he starts to actually try to spin up a team in Asia in order to deliver local projects, then a team in Europe to deliver also other projects, but he never get actually the right to deliver, to have business expenses to travel to Europe. That's sad, but well, still, he has an international team, that's good. And so then he has like this core team that is in charge of building core models and core data sets within the organization to make things flow and so on. Then he needs to hire more, and soon he has 100 people reporting to him. Probably not directly, so he has to set up some organization. And so Gary became a manager without having the 1 minute to think about it and start to have those kind of questions like, how should I make people work together? Who should do what? How do I do reuse from one project to another? And so on. How do I move to production in a seamless manner? This kind of question. Hopefully, he starts asking those questions before he has 100 people reporting to him. Hopefully. But still. And so basically what we do at Dataiku is trying to answer to Gary's question by providing a software platform. That's kind of our mission. You don't need to have 100 people in your report in order to use Dataiku, I reassure you. And so the kind of big stance built like a cultural bias we've got in terms of answering to this question is that, well, when you think about it, when you have to set up data team, there is like two ways you can think about data science in adoption. One is like a very kind of approach, I would call it elite, where you think that business people need to basically understand the business and give you a specification of what you want to do, and you need to hire like very good data scientists and tech people in order to get those things done and deliver value to the business, which is one way to think about it. And if you think about that this way, in order to deliver data science, you basically need to hire lots of PhDs and AI specialists and so on, and make them operate as a software team delivering high-value software. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is that data science is actually a mix of business and tech, and the challenge is actually to make business people and tech people get on board in data science together and work collaboratively on project. Because you cannot really deliver data science without having lots and lots of business insights and have everyone on board on those projects. And so at Dataiku, we basically build the platform with this in mind, and this kind of inclusive approach. What it means in practice, in the way we build the product, is that, well, when you do data science for real, you don't do just machine learning, sadly. You actually do lots of data management, you do machine learning, and once you're happy with your models, you have to deploy them and maintain them in production. And the market, in the last few years, was basically also about having point solution that would do either data preparation, AutoML for machine learning, or lets you deploy models. And also with an approach where you had some platforms for business analysts, others for data scientists, and possibly others for data engineers. And so our approach at Dataiku is that if you want really to solve the problem of enterprise and organization and Gary's problem, you actually need to deliver. And I also believe that matters the best. Meaning best of breed is like so overrated. If you get a dog, don't go for best of breed. Don't buy your dog. Get a poor dog that actually needs a home. That's a side topic. So you need the best of, you want a platform that can actually solve the problem of multiple people within the organization to help them work together. That's what we do. And so the way we do it is actually by having a platform where you can do data prep, machine learning, where you can deploy model to production, and where, let's say, a project starts with business people that would source the data, transform it, find some potential in it, leverage AutoML in order to build a model. Then some data scientists will come in, perhaps further optimize this model or work on a specific piece of the data that is hard to manipulate. And this would become something that the business analysts reuse in order to further refine his spec. Then maybe when you push this to production, the data engineers come in to make scale part of the data flow, and so on. Everything until under the management of someone, business sponsors that can foresee and understand what is happening in the data. And I think this is actually all you want and need to deliver a data science solution within the enterprise, with this intertwined workflow between business analysts, data scientists, and data engineers. And so that's actually what we see and what we see among our customers, with large team of 50, 100, 200 people mixing those skills that typically work on many use cases, among others, strategic projects like marketing budget allocation, logistic optimization, pricing optimization, and blah, and blah, and blah, and blah. And what is, I think, interesting to me that this pattern is actually very common across all verticals, meaning it's not just financial services or high-value retail that is going through that strand. It's like really any verticals where you see people getting into data and getting organized into teams with this kind of hybrid environment, mixing business and tech. So today, I wanted to speak to you a little bit about Dataiku 5, which is the release we are adding today. And so I won't do any demo and so on, because I'm a software vendor, but still I've got a soul. Still, I think. And so it was more like to try to convince you that when you want to build software, well, you need to listen to your customers, but you also need to have strong beliefs and try to implement them in your software like a maniac. And so I will share to you what I believe in terms of building good data science software. So first part of our credo is that, well, you should kind of separate specification and execution as much as possible in data. Meaning that you need, when you do data science, to specify data transformation and modeling and training and so on. But as much as possible, you should make it so you can execute everywhere the thing that you do. That you can do maybe in SQL databases or not, or Hadoop or cloud or not. You should be able to separate execution and specification as much as possible. Because that's, meaning the way the technology evolved in the last few years makes it necessary. And so that's basically what we do with Dataiku. And in fact, on our last release, Dataiku 5, we added Docker as a support. Meaning that you can execute any workflow in Docker if you want it so, which is nice for scale. Why Docker? Because it's hype. Docker is very hype, and Kubernetes is very hype. And so we really think that you should be able to do data science in any hype platform, because hype is important. And so so you can deploy models in Docker, and it's nice. You can monitor them. It's very nice to look at. Nice graphs. I like it. Credo number 2, actually, is that I think that, well, machine learning is to be automated in the next few years. It's already pretty much automated, but with gradients of complexity. There's a pun here. Gradients of complexity. Get it? No. What I mean is that sometimes, well, you can do the machine learning for various reasons. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. You can have like casual use case or very complex use cases, high value use cases or not. You can use machine learning for prototyping or to actually solve a business critical issue. And so it's kind of like, you would like automated machine learning, kind of a very smart camera, meaning not like an iPhone camera, like a real camera, one where you can trigger between auto mode and manual mode and everything in between, depending on what you need and how sophisticated you are as a user. And that's kind of what we also added in Dataiku 5, like a way for you to control automated machine learning, where you say, yeah, I'm an expert, so I want to have some control, or not. I want to let you build my model for me. And like every gradient of sophistication in between, where you can add your own piece of code, look at the models training themselves, and then explore the results. And another thing we added is like GPU support, because if you have GPU, it's good to use them. I don't know why, but it's good. And so this way we can kind of, today with the platform, span from very kind of not simple, but like focused use cases, I would say, like doing churn, doing a churn or customer lifetime value on CRM data, to complex or sophisticated business problems like routing of physical letters, or P-mails, as I call them, within the platform. And our credo number 3 in Dataiku, it's pretty simple, is that believe that you shall try to centralize metadata associated to your data science project as much as possible. I'm not talking about the data, but like the metadata, anything related to that. And so to introduce a subject, well, like, there are two projects that I really like, open source projects, Airflow and JupyterLab, and I think that most of you know them. Like, I don't know, how many people in the room like know, well, maybe not JupyterLab, but use Jupyter? Yeah, that's like almost half of the room. And Airflow, okay, that's like 5% of the room. Okay, still. So those two projects are like very interesting, but to some extent don't go far enough, because what you really want at the end of the day is the ability to capture within a platform everything related to your data science project. Being able to reproduce things without any hidden states and so on, being able to capture information and documentation at every like edge or node of your computational graph. And really able to share this information within the organization, not just for tech people, but like for everyone, including like business people that need to understand how the computation was done. So one thing that we added in Dataiku 5, so we already had for quite some time workflows to ensure reproducibility of the computation, is ability to document in a very thorough manner every step of your data science project, and also add some discussions and capture some discussion or comments associated to those. And at the end of the day, my vision is that, well, enterprise data is possibly very complex, and you've got lots of software and possible ways to store enterprise data in these various forms, like discussions or content or different version and code and so on. But at the end of the day, for each transversal domain, you actually need a platform that brings consistently together all of this data. And we want basically to be this platform, this kind of platform that puts things in context for data science. So to finish with, well, my goal here was to make you a little bit curious about Dataiku and what we do. So I've got 3 takeaways for you. None of them come with any cost, which is a good news. The first one is that Dataiku is actually free for you, meaning it's free for individuals, NGOs, and academics, and you can go to our website and download it. That's good. The second one is that we've got a lab, meaning we've got 30 data scientists at Dataiku, and they spend about like 20-25% of their time working on science projects, which could be like apply deep reinforcement learning on some specific subject. And so we are looking for funny projects or funny data set to work with, usually at no charge, unless you plan to make an enormous profit out of it, obviously. And third, well, obviously we are a nice company and we are growing, and we have offices like 3 blocks away. And so if you are interested, and if the idea of inclusive data science resonates to you, don't hesitate to drop us a note. Thank you. Yeah. I think that if you, I brought some T-shirts. If you've got questions, I will throw you a T-shirt. I don't have a Canon for T-shirts. You want one? I've got plenty of those.
Actually, since you started, a few more words on the company and the history and what you guys are doing in the US, New York office, all those things.
Yeah, so the company is 5 years old, and we've really been in the US for about 3 years. As you may imagine, I am French. And so the product teams, the engineering teams in Paris, which is a great place to live in. If you want to relocate to Paris, you are a software engineer, come and see me. And so we actually operated in the US for 3 years. 3 years at the office downtown New York. And yeah, in the last few years, it's really been about growing in the US, serving mostly Fortune 500 customers in the US.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially since you have a global perspective, what's your sense of where we are in the cycle of adoption of, whether you call it data science, machine learning, or AI in the enterprise? Are we still very early? Are we starting to see a larger group of people doing this, or are we further along in the cycle?
I think we are probably like 20-25% in the cycle, whatever I mean by that. But what I mean by that is that people that were early adopters 3 or 4 years ago today have typically teams, as I mentioned, of 50, 100, 200 people, and start to deliver like very business critical results with data science. But there are still other organizations that are just starting in data and will probably follow the lead of those people already organized and get up to speed in the next few years.
And are you seeing differences per industry?
Yes, I do. For instance, in the manufacturing, I saw drastic changes in the last 2 to 3 years where high-tech manufacturing, meaning anything which would be aerospace or microchips and so on, was really getting into data for predictive maintenance, logistic optimization, price optimization, and so on, like in a very, very rapid manner, where I think that other kind of manufacturing are still a little behind, which actually makes sense because when you want to do this, you need to have sensor data. And if you can't rebuild your factory to gather sensor data, it's very hard to get by. And so in high-tech manufacturing, you've got cycles in terms of building your factory, which are shorter. So I guess that it will also get to global manufacturing in the next 10 years, probably.
Okay, very good. All right, I want this to be interactive, so we're going to open up for questions.
So today you can use both within Dataiku. So you can either use it on Dataiku is on-prem, but you can deploy it with Amazon very easily and actually spin up EMR cluster or things on top of Kubernetes directly from the platform. So it can be both depending on what you want.
So what are the what?
What are some of the risks going to a data-driven world?
Meaning do you mean the risk globally of being data-driven? Oh, I don't.
Well, just from an enterprise standpoint, I guess what makes projects fail and what happens then?
Well, if you take the perspective of enterprise world and the project I saw, the main risk of a data-driven world is actually not being data-driven because you don't have the data. Meaning most of the projects I saw failing dramatically were because of data not being available or not being in the format or the quality that was expected. Like I saw several projects started because people thought they had data, but actually the column or the particular feature that they were targeting was actually not captured by the systems that were in place. And so we still are at this level of maturity where we are not sure that the data is here and is actually the main risk for a project, I would say. Oh.
Some more here.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, basically most of our engineering effort is about keeping up with what's new on the market. And so kind of our internal goal is that whatever are like the top 3 possibly frameworks for a given task, like machine learning or high-scale computation and so on, we should support it in the platform. So to give you some example, last year we added support for Spark ML for machine learning, and we added support for TensorFlow with this release. Well, you could do TensorFlow with the platform before, but we added visual support for TensorFlow with TensorBoard and so on, so that you can visually integrate with TensorFlow. And so, obviously, we cannot just deliver things as they get to the market. Like, we can't support an open source framework and integrate it fully, like 1 week after its release. But I think that the way we integrate it with our platform is realistic for the benefit of the enterprise that actually cannot just like redo its own workflow every time there is a new kid in town or a new open source framework. Meaning we provide I think it's interesting to have a smooth transition path from one framework to another, from Scikit to TensorFlow, and whatever else comes next.
Yes, in the call.
Hi, thanks for the interesting talk. I think this whole audience is enamored with data. So I'm just going to ask you a simple question. So are there any applications, because we spend a lot of time collecting and analyzing all the data, so have you encountered any applications where doing this is just a waste of time?
Where it's a pure waste of time to analyze data?
Just collect, analyze, and just getting the data to be more, any areas where it's just not worth doing.
Oh, that's a great question. I think, yeah. Meaning, the thing is that you've got, you don't, meaning that's part of the that's part of being data driven. And even the next step is that in the data driven revolution, you need to accept failures. Meaning, actually, not all projects will be a success. Maybe you'll have 20, 30% of failure, just because sometimes it's just a bad idea. Like, it's not true that you've got, that you can predict the behavior of your customers just looking at Twitter data. But maybe it is, so you can take a look. And so these kind of projects, you've got plenty, and it's not because they are failures that you should not try again, but yeah, that's part of the thing. And I think that's part of the data-driven revolution is about accepting that and setting up your organization so that you can just iterate on those projects, learn of your mistakes. So document those mistakes. It's not because the project was a mistake that you should throw it away and fire the people that did it. Well, maybe you should, I don't know. But you need to keep the documentation so that next time you try, you actually can maybe get one step further.
Good, all right, one last one, last sort of quick one.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. What would be your advice for a company that doesn't have a data team yet, and they don't have a Gary yet? What would be your advice to find that Gary?
Oh, go to a meetup such as this one and ask this question. That's a great way to do it. Was it your thinking? Meaning, are you looking for a Gary in your organization?
No, we were looking for in the last company I worked with, and we kind of struggled with it, and we didn't find the right solution. So just
I guess was the first hire, right? If you don't have a data team.
No, I think the first hire is very. I don't have a magic solution for that. I never saw meaning. I think that if you don't have the first hire, you can go to other routes. Like you can have you have good consulting firms that you can use and so on, depending on your size and what you really want to achieve. But having those first hire, the one that will build the team, is key at some point. Just because you can't hire a data scientist without a data scientist, meaning you don't even know what the hiring process is. Mm-hmm. And so you need to find someone on the market, someone that did it, or has the will to do it and the mind to do it, and just convince him that the data set and the challenge is good. And that he should do that and not work at Facebook. or Google or whatever, which actually, depending on your location, is actually the challenge.
Great. On that note, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Congratulations on the release.